name, image, and likeness. It pretty much made these players quasi-free agents. Yo, this is Trav with Trav Sports Bag. I'm back at it again today with you, getting down on some sports. I want to hurry up and get down with it, so let's go take care of that YouTube business first. That means subscribe to the channel. That's right, when you subscribe to the channel and hit the bell, that makes sure that you get every drop I drop whenever I drop it. So make sure you take care of that business right there. It also helps with the algorithm. We need that help as well to spread this message to everybody who's interested in sports, not just boxing, not just football, not just baseball. Sports as you know it, sports as you like it. So let's take care of that business there. Also, I still want to get to my first 1,000 subscribers. That's a good idea. Why? Because it helps get this message to a lot of people. I like speaking to a broad audience, because I believe it's entertaining and informative. If you agree, let me know. Going by the analytics, you agree with me. So with that said, let's get to the business at hand. I know why you're here. You, of course, know why you're here. You saw the thumbnail, and that thumbnail said, the Cash Money Brothers of college football. That's right, we're in a new age of collegiate sports, and it's led particularly in football, college football, as you saw on the thumbnail. Jimbo Fisher of Texas A&M, Deion Sanders of Jackson State, and of course, the Lord of them all, Nick Saban of the mighty Alabama Crimson Tide. You saw their faces on the thumbnail, and you came over here. You had to click because you wanted to know what it was all about. And I'm about to tell you just that. The stars of the show, that's who those three guys are for this show only, and maybe some other shows depending on what comes up in college football over the next couple of days, weeks, or even throughout the year. It is all about the transfer portal and the NIL, name, image, and likeness. I'm sure most of you know what it is right now if you've been covering college football or if you've been watching college football or college sports, including basketball. It's been a big deal over the past couple of years, but it's been on steroids of late. So let's get down to why I'm here and why the Cash Brothers, CMB, Cash Money Brothers. And let me tell you why the Cash Money Brothers are big in college football right now. That seems to be the talk of the town. So let's get down to it. Texas A&M, they came with the big haul in recruiting year 2022, the biggest and greatest class they've ever had. I've never really kept up with Texas A&M recruiting, but I've followed recruiting for years. You can't keep your eye on everybody, well, unless they're special. And Texas A&M has never really told you they were a special team. They never told you they told you they were good, but they never were a special recruiting team. Texas, of course, that's the flagship school of the state of Texas. So we expected that. So now we see how Alabama's doing. We've seen how Georgia's doing. We see how USC, Ohio State, Notre Dame, we know how they're going about the recruiting business and how they've been doing it for decades on end. Now it's Texas A&M entering the upper echelon of recruiting and probably some national championships in the future if you go by the names and the stars and the ability, at least projected ability of these players. Texas A&M is now Texas A&M, according to Nick Saban and people from the outside looking in, because there seems to have been a lot of money spent, maybe not. We can't verify anything. Everybody's denying it, people pointing fingers. But because of NIL, which gives student athletes an opportunity to market themselves pretty much to the highest bidder, well, it gives them opportunities to make money while they're in college. We've always talked about it for the past several years. I mean, ad nauseum, of how these players needed to get paid. The education wasn't good enough just in terms of how much it cost. We had to give them money to spend. Well, now you got money to spend. You have $40,000 in some areas. You have more than that in other areas. When it comes to Alabama, as Nick Saban stated before, I have 25 players who are able to leverage what's going on with the NIL, and they've gotten a total of about $3 million. I thought there was more than that, but that's just not Nick. I'm sure there are other players throughout the country, basketball and football, who are doing the same. But Texas A&M, is now pushing out the cash and bringing in the players. And going by what they pulled in terms of their haul in recruiting, there may be some truth to it. They were absolutely phenomenal in the last recruiting cycle of 2022. They were number one. And I believe it had to be for the first time in their history, or the first time since they've been keeping records, that they're the number one class. Whether you go by rivals.com, whether you go by 247 Sports, those are the ones I trust. Somewhere around here, there's some truth to it in terms of if they're number one or if they're number two, or the star rankings for the players that they eventually had gotten during their recruiting classes. And by the way, as being the number one team, they're still followed by the usual suspects of teams. Alabama was number two. Georgia's number three, the defending champions. And they've been number one a couple of times, so we saw the results of that with their first national championship in 41 years. Ohio State, they're always going to be there. Texas is there, even Notre Dame is number 6, according to who you want to believe, but they're pretty much in somewhat of a consensus in terms of the ability that these recruiting classes are projecting. So, along with that Texas A&M team, if you watch the previous show that I've made, I've told you what it was about. Let's get a little bit more in depth if we must. They had 8 5-star players signed in this recruiting class. Bro, that's typically what they would have over the course of several recruiting classes, but they did not stop there. They came from multiple states, and then from those multiple states, Texas A&M, not Alabama, not Georgia, not Ohio State, not USC. They got the number one player in a number of football playing states and other states. So that's probably cause for people to think otherwise in terms of, did they do it right? Did they pay these players? Because all of a sudden this just happened. NIL became a thing. So they're the ones taking the biggest step forward. I'm just saying, I'm putting it out there. You're going to have to make the decision for your own. On top of that, they had 19 4-star players. 19 4-star players. 17 players in the top 100. That's complete insanity. You're pretty much putting an NFL team in place right now. I mean, with all of those players, I don't really look at the star system as an end-all, be-all, or even as a gospel. But when you're kind of being intellectually honest, you know that there has to be something there. You know that there has to be a player that may end up as a NFL draft pick, maybe even the number one pick overall. You just don't know. But you know they're going to at least play college football and probably do well, especially with the way the coaches are, the coaching them up, the facilities, all that stuff that's going to supplement what they've done as high school players. And another thing, I mean, come on, let's get around to it. What Texas A&M has just done is more than they have done in the previous 3 seasons in terms of the quality of players they've gotten in the star system, 5 stars, 4 stars, 17 out of the top 100. It's better than what they've done in 3 seasons combined. So I can see why Nick Saban may think there's something going on. I can see why the eyebrows were raised for Nick Saban, wondering what's going on here. Now, Nick, if he's correct on what he's saying, that he doesn't pay for players, I don't believe he may pay for players, but you never know what's going on behind closed doors. But I think if it came down to me, I'm not a Bama fan. I don't have any skin in the game. I believe Nick Saban may have some truth to him. He has built a reputation to the point where people are pretty much coming to him. He's turning back 5-star players because he has so many other 5-star players. I'm being a bit facetious with that. No one turns down 5-star players regardless of the program. But he's at that point to where he's the Pied Piper. They're coming to him. So I don't think he has to put that extra oomph in there in terms of dollars and cents to convince someone to come to Alabama with their recent history or even their history over the past 10 years at least with championships, NFL draft picks, high draft picks, all of that, you know, and overall success. But along with Texas A&M, they have, I believe, the anchor of their defense, Jamal Stewart, a defensive lineman. There's been comparisons to Myles Garrett when it comes to this guy. And if you're making that comparison right now, of course, you're just comparing. You don't know what might happen. Anything can happen. He could freaking get hurt. Like a lot of players and their careers don't turn out to be what they want. But on the surface right now, before getting on campus and looking at his body of work as a high school player and trying to do the usual trajectory, Jamal Stewart, defensive lineman from Senior Pace High School. This is a guy who probably should have been going to one of the 3 big Florida schools which is Florida State, Miami. One of those three. That's how it used to be back in the days. And now, even with Alabama's talent push over the past decade or more, he should have ended up there. Maybe even Auburn, since they have a pipeline to the state of Florida. No, he ends up at Texas A&M. That's absolutely insane. The eyebrows go up again. Over things like that. So when you look at what Jimbo Fisher is doing at Texas A&M, yeah, it's going to open some eyes. And NILs is a reason why that's going to happen. Name, image, and likeness. It pretty much made these players quasi-free agents. And that's what they're doing. They're collecting. And once they get into school and they may live up to expectation, God knows how much money they're going to get there. They might not want to leave because their NFL contract may not be able to compete. Come on now. But that takes me to Alabama. We all know about Alabama. They're always under the microscope. They did their usual recruiting. They got their 5-star guys. They got their 4-star guys. They did what Alabama has been doing. And that's just it. But they've also have, over the past couple of years, supplemented what they've done in recruiting, which is usually a fantastic recruiting class, with players from the portal. Whether it was Jameson Williams from Ohio State, who chose to come to Alabama. Now you're talking about Tyler Harrell. Tyler Harrell's coming from Louisville. Yeah, you would think Louisville, what could a player from Louisville really contribute to a school like Alabama? They're not even on the same level. Yeah, but this is one of those players that was probably and likely the flagship player on their team. An absolute speed demon at 6 feet tall, just blazing through any defense in the ACC. And now he looks to do that in the SEC. He goes from having Malik Cunningham as a quarterback to having a Heisman Trophy winning Bryce Young throwing the ball to him. So you're telling me things aren't going to change for him just as well as for the Alabama program, which has gotten these players recruiting wise and now continue to get these players through the transfer portal? I mean, Jameson Williams, he did the same thing. I remember going to the game where Alabama played Miami and Atlanta. I went up there for a day to check it out, and Jameson Winston was on display, and the speed he had in person cannot be justified watching it at home. So these are the types of players we're talking about. Another speed demon, another merchant of speed with Tyler Herrell coming to the Crimson Tide. And by the way, don't think that Alabama doesn't lose players. They lose players as well. The deal is they stock themselves so much that they're always going to be able to replenish. They are going to be able to reload. They don't rebuild. They haven't been rebuilding for over a decade now. Look at Jerome Ford. He couldn't cut it at Alabama. He goes to Cincinnati and he destroys the competition. Initially, he was a Heisman Trophy candidate for a couple of weeks. 1,319 yards, 6.1 yards per carry, 19 touchdowns on the season for the Bearcats, who ended up going to the college football playoffs and had an opportunity at a national championship. These are the players leaving Alabama. Most of the players that leave Alabama are the ones who can't cut it on the too deep depth chart. That's why they leave. Understand what I'm telling you. It's about the NIL. It's about the transfer portal. You put those two together, and this is what you're getting. Yeah, it's still Nick Saban. It's still Jimbo Fisher. And guess who it is? It's also Deion Sanders, primetime Deion Sanders, the former NFL player, the Hall of Famer in the NFL, now coaching at an HBCU, Jackson State University in the SWAC. They were the runner-ups in the SWAC last season, losing in the Celebration Bowl to South Carolina State. He had something to say. All they had is an argument for Travis Hunter because he was able to steal the number one player pretty much on a consensus throughout the entire country from his alma mater, Florida State. Travis Hunter left Tallahassee to come to Jackson State. He didn't go to Florida State. He did not even go to the other HBCU, which is Florida A&M University, which does have somewhat of a reputation of getting some of these players. Case in point, Marquis Bell, the safety from Florida A&M, who came from Maryland. So bigger schools do choose to come to some of these HBCUs. But Deion Sanders was also accused of giving about $1 million, or the reason why Hunter decided to come to Jackson State was because he was going to get an NIL deal worth $1 million. We don't know if that story is true, but it makes for good fodder. And that's why I'm here, bringing you the fodder, bringing you the facts, anecdotes, the opinions, all of the above. So let me tell you about this. He had allegedly gotten about $1 million. But then he gets on Twitter and he tells you this, yo, if I had $1 million, why is my mom still in a 3-bedroom home with 5 children? You know what? It makes some sense. I know you want to hide your money here and there and give it to you when you can, but I also know how people just want to give their moms everything. And if you can, you will. Everyone else be damned. As long as your family is straight, that's typically what you would do. And I kind of now sort of believe, because I was one of those people that thought he might have gotten $1 million as well. But it looks like he may be telling the truth, because just that little bit of information makes a little bit of sense. I know people out there may be upset because he did not go to Florida State. He chose an HBCU, which is a small school, which is historically black colleges and universities. And people are not on board with someone choosing that over what they consider one of the Power 5 conference teams and one of the elite teams in the Power 5 conference, which is Florida State. I mean, they're not elite now, but we know their history and we know they can get back there. So what's fact? What's fiction? I'll tell you what, I cannot wait until SEC Media Days in July. Saban versus Jimbo. There might have been a few apologies. There might have been a few acknowledgments of I might have been wrong, even with Deion Sanders involved. But there's going to be some fire in Birmingham or wherever they're having the SEC Media Days this year. Until next time.